All right, very good. All right, we'll go ahead and call this regular meeting, last meeting of 2022. The Board of Supervisors to order. Roll call, Mr. Grandia.
Keisha Johnner. Here. Mark Ramey.
Here.
Steve McCombs.
Here. I would entertain a motion on this morning's agenda.
Make motion to approve today's agenda.
Second.
McCombs.
Aye.
Ramey.
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
All right, very good. Communications, Jake, any received by your office?
Yes, since the last meeting, there was a letter from Indiana Township trustee resigning as trustee. So
Right.
I'll put that in for record.
Okay, very good, thank you. Supervisors, any communications?
I had a communication from a lady in Monroe about the Dunnery Cemetery. I drove up there and took care of it. The flags were tattered, and then I talked to Jake about it. I tried contacting the trustees, but nobody answered.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for handling that, Steve. Appreciate it. Keisha.
Yeah, I believe we all got a email from Calvin Banstra regarding the EMS and Lake Prairie Township and the city working together, hopefully. But other than that, yeah.
Okay, good. And I did receive an email from incoming trustee for Indiana Township, Trapper Carter, asking about the vacancy. And I said, wait till their first meeting of the year, when he and Rich can decide on how they want to handle any upcoming appointment. So that is in play whenever they get together for their first official meeting. All right. Well, that's a lot of communications for the end of the year. Public comments is the portion of our agenda the public can speak on items not listed on this morning's agenda. The board cannot act on those items, but they could be topics for future meetings. Are there any public comments on items not on this morning's agenda? Tyler Christian.
I'd just like to thank our road department employees for their work over the past 4 or 5 days. Thursday night and Friday night were pretty ugly as far as the wind in the northern half of the county. There were homes inaccessible in the overnight hours. We had people on call 24/7 if we had an emergency. But Saturday morning, we were able to wrap up almost by noon. We took motor graders from the south half of the county and trucks and had 4 or 5 pieces of equipment on the routes, each of the routes up north, and we're able to get people home before Christmas Eve services and family gatherings. So I just want to tell our employees, thank you for their hard work. And, we didn't have to work on Christmas. A lot of counties did, and it's because of the team effort we had this past week. So thank you.
Very good. Tyler, thank you for that. And again, and our thanks to our road crews as well. They do an amazing job. Tyler, thank you.
Thank you, Tyler.
Yes, thank you. And the guys.
Any other public comments, again, on items not listed on this morning's agenda? Anything online? Nothing online. We'll move on. I would entertain a motion on this morning's consent agenda.
Make motion to approve today's consent agenda.
Second.
Ramey.
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
All right, very good. On to business. We'll turn the pages here. We have a discussion item, a proposal to install Christmas lights from Marion County Courthouse. And we have Jason Cushman listed. Jason. All right. Yeah, a change up. All right. Very good.
Thank you for having us. My
Joe-
name is Joe
Yeah,
Cunningham.
thanks, Joe.
Jason and I are both, had been working on something a little bit unbeknownst to each other. So, but then we learned about each other, so we came together. And it is about trying to get Christmas lights back on the courthouse. For those that remember in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s before we were able to stop doing that. Jason has some ideas about making it more of a permanent structure, actually, more of a permanent setup with lighting that changes with the different seasons and so forth. But what we're looking for today is just the county's approval essentially to let us start working on that, to investigate it, get different quotes. We'll also be working with the city if it were to cross streets to get onto city poles. But we'd just like your approval to investigate the process, see if it's doable, see if we're able to do it, try to get through the different engineering issues to see that it would work. And we'd like to see it back again. We have
So-
a beautiful courthouse, beautiful downtown, and we'd like to highlight it again.
Absolutely. So really just to put together a proposal, Joe, that's what you're thinking about.
Correct. I mean, without the county's backing, we don't want to do the work to come back and find out that there's just no way we can do such a thing.
Right.
So we'd like to get started on it. I've talked to Chris a little bit, and we'll have a lot more discussions, obviously, on some of the roadblocks that will come up with this, solutions around it, but come up with some ideas that we can come back to the county and the city and see if that will work.
Very good. So Chris, do we have the mic? I don't want to make. Chris, any issues from a maintenance perspective on working on a proposal for this? I know we've had discussions about this kind of offline, but do you have any issues with that?
No, absolutely not. I'm in complete favor of doing something on the courthouse grounds to set us apart from other counties, to help with downtown traffic. I think that is a wonderful thing. Again, I still stand by the assessment that attaching directly to the building is a no-go. I brought part of our lovely building in with me today to show the sandstone just does not like anything being attached to it. 100% in favor of any kind of proposal that either directs light at the courthouse. We've got some ideas there. Anywhere else on the courthouse grounds, the building was built in 1896. It's one of the few that's made out of sandstone. It's just not one thing that we can drill into or suspend, weight from. Outside of that, I think it's a wonderful idea.
And then Jake, institutional memory here. We did have lights at one time years ago on the courthouse or something to that effect, did we not?
I don't want to admit that institutional memory might be a little bit before mine. Well, I'm not sure. I don't have any recall. of
I'm
that.
thinking that you and I and Lori talked about this years ago, and Dan McKay at that time had some reservations from an insurance
I
standpoint.
believe there was a request back then. I don't remember actually lights being up. Believe there was a request, and I'm assuming that Chris has worked with McKay, and I'm sure we can get Tanya or
Well,
from McKay, and
and the only reason
they
I-
can research all that stuff.
And the only reason I bring that up, Joe, you're familiar with that side of the house too, so just working on the liability part of that
Absolutely.
proposal
Yeah,
would be.
There's hurdles to cross here. We don't deny that. When they were taken down, I'm pretty sure it was in 94, and the city's insurance company made them stop. I'm quoting that from, my dad was the mayor at the time and was explaining the story to me. But our childhood, if you're my age, Jason's age, I'm older than him. Yeah, they went from the bell tower to the four corners of the square.
Mhm.
Beautiful thing. You could see it from 7 miles out of town. It was a great sight, but
Yeah.
insurance made them take it down. But part of it is things have changed since then. LED lights and whatnot. It's a fraction of the weight, different technologies.
Mhm.
So
Okay,
What was the insurance issue?
I have no idea. Like my understanding was the way it went over the street and the connection to the poles that were on. We have very different poles now in our city, but the connection to the poles on the outside four corners. The fact how that was put together.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to exploring the idea. The only thing I'm with everybody else, I think the liability issues, if it was to be done every year, when you say the top of the courthouse, I mean, that right away, that my light bulb goes off, somebody up there climbing around on top of the courthouse, Are we
Yeah,
gonna
it
get
came out,
sued?
I have a picture of where it connected is. Came out of the bell tower. It's not a wonderful picture. It's a 1970s Polaroid,
Yeah.
probably. It's a picture of a picture, but
And I agree with Chris as part of the sandstone, but that's something you guys will have to work out. If there's some structure within the bell tower that can be,
that's
in-
our preferable idea, but those are discussions that will need to come. A structure there that doesn't pull or connect to the
Yeah.
building.
I'm
And in
not
fact,
opposed to
would
the
pull against
research
each
of it.
other.
Keisha?
Yeah, this was probably Jason, when he reached out to me, was probably the third person that had reached out in the last probably year or two. And I did think it was important that we just discuss it as a board. So I did recommend Jason to go ahead and request an agenda item. I am not necessarily opposed, but I can't risk our building. I will tell you that. So that's where I'm at. So I don't have a problem with them looking and, discussing and coming back with possible proposals. but yeah.
Well, no, I think what you're hearing, Joe, is that we're all in favor of putting together a proposal. I don't know, Jake, that we need to do anything formal on that. It'd be them.
It's up to
coming
you
back.
guys. I don't know when money starts getting spent and stuff like that.
That's where we
Whatever,
want
it's
to,
up to
that's
you
where
guys.
we'll need action. But I think Joe,
Yeah, we don't know yet either.
well, I think Joe, what you're hearing from the board is put together a proposal, take into account the insurance issues, the building issues, and then present it to the board and we'll see where we sit.
Can I ask who the insurance is with? 'Cause I'll
Sorry.
start with them or I'll speak
Yeah.
with them.
So, the county has, Iowa Community Insurance Pool, ICAP, as their insurance,
Okay.
coverage, and it's through, McKay.
Okay.
And we usually work with Tanya at McKay.
Got it.
Okay, so yeah, so put together something and we'll see where we sit.
Sounds good.
Yeah, Brian.
Can you have the-
Mike, Brian.
Testing. Are we on? From the city's perspective, likewise, they're open to the conversation. As far as how those lights come across the street or where they attach to. I think a lot of them are in favor of the idea of it and open to discussion, open to the discussion to see where it'll lead, and what ideas we have to come up with. So I don't know if that helps conversation at all, but.
Perfect. Joe, thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks
Joe.
for your
Thank
time.
you,
Thank you very
Jason.
Thank you very much. All right, with that, I would entertain a motion to close discussion on this item.
Make motion to close discussion.
Second?
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey.
Aye, very good. Next, Knoxville Memorial Hall repairs. Mr. Reed. Would you rather Mike, Dick, or? Okay, all right.
We had a gutter fell off of be the northwest corner this, fall. And, was gonna have Jason Cushman come and put it up. Well, when he got up there, all the wood's rotten. And he said the roof isn't in that good a shape. He said he didn't know if it would cost this much, but the top would be $80,000. And I know the county probably can't do that, but I have two daughters that are real good at looking for grants. And I don't know, how do we approach that? Because the county owns the building, so do we have to get the grant through you folks or?
Well, so we got a couple of things here. So the building needs some repairs then. I know that the Memorial Hall has an account, Dick. Do you know how much is in that account? Or maybe Jake, you know how much is in that
I
account?
think there's around 50,000.
I don't believe you guys have, I don't believe the memorial commissioners have turned in a financial, or like an annual financial for several years, so, I don't know today's date.
So, first thing, we probably should check that account, Dick, to see
Okay.
what's in that. Because that's money designated specifically for Memorial Hall,
Right.
and see what's in there relative to whatever repairs are necessary. I think the second piece, Jake, for us as a board is it's always been a gray area of responsibility. Is it the commission? Is it the board of supervisors?
We have always taken care of everything.
Yes, I know it's always been
Yeah.
the commission that's
Yeah.
done that. So,
And
So
the
I-
county used to give them money years ago, and the older gentleman done a good job investing it and stuff, and through the winter, like the utilities are $1,100, $1,200.
Okay.
That's,
A
but
month.
we
you're
have a
saying.
lot of people using it now, this pickleball, and we
yeah, I
have,
thought- yeah.
kids, like soccer. In March, we have, the first year baseball players. They come in, put nets up and stuff, but a lot of kids don't even know how to throw a ball or swing a bat. So
Okay.
we have a lot of people that do use it.
Well, we certainly don't want the building to fall into disrepair, but I think we need to know what's in that account, number one. And then Dick, what exactly we need for repairs.
Okay,
So if we could get an estimate on that relative to what's in that
okay.
account.
So
I think
just take the account, take it up, Jake.
see what dollars we have, and then
Yeah.
I think that account, if it covers it, that's what that account is for upkeep on Memorial Hall. And those things.
It used to be, the memorial halls would turn in an annual financial, so that would kind of be the report to the board of supervisors. of
Okay.
What was there, Chuck Day We'd always bring it up once a year.
Because Chuck always took care of the repairs
don't-
and he'd
I don't
spend
know. who the
whatever.
That'd be
treasurer-
my
I don't, oh, okay. I don't know who the treasurer is. I mean, I'm not putting
No.
anything on. So if you have something like that, you can bring it into my office and it will be forwarded
Okay.
to the board.
Okay,
And regarding the repairs, would we want to advise him to get more than one bid or just a bid in general?
He should, I think, whatever your commission, who's on your commission right now? Who's on the Memorial Hall?
Ed
Commission?
and I and Gary Hudson,
Okay.
Jack Spore, Steve Hatch.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you guys take care of it. I'm fine either way, Keisha, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, the responsibility really is within the commission to take care of the building.
Right.
So,
Well, that's what I say. I mean, it's the only one that's really left.
Yep.
For quite a ways around.
Yep.
That's why I didn't know if my daughters could find grants, can we do that? Are
as
you
long-
opposed to that?
I'm not opposed to it as long as there's no legal restriction to do it.
Yeah,
So I don't see where there would be.
okay.
So,
But can we do it as a commission or does it have to go through the county?
so the way I would do it is, find out what's in your account. Get bids. I think we should, well said on getting multiple bids. If you can get grants put together, a package that says, here's the repairs, here's how much it's gonna cost, report it to the board of supervisors.
Okay,
And then we can say, yep, we agree,
okay.
or we don't.
I tried to get a history of it. I can't find anybody that knows much about it. Like when it was built.
Yeah, I think the initial purpose of the memorial halls, I don't know that it's actually being met in these days. On what, how, for what they were actually established for. I mean, you're being a vet, that's exactly
Right.
what they were
Right.
established for, was for the,
Yeah.
for the use of the veterans, and
Mhm.
I think it's kind of
Okay,
went away from that, but
So if
I
you
don't
get,
know if it says on the building at all, Dick, at all. Yeah.
pardon me?
Does it say around the building at all? That, a lot of times on buildings, it says the year that it was established.
No,
It doesn't? Okay,
doesn't.
yeah. I don't know.
no. I kind of thought Ed would know, but I think his memory's left him that way.
come on, Ed.
Okay, I'll get that put together. See if I can find an old paper like Chuck did or whatever.
We would have copies of whatever the last
Okay,
he
I
turned
might
in.
come up and get a copy and, okay, that'd be fine.
all
Thanks,
right,
what we can
Dick,
find.
thank you very much.
Thank you,
Alright,
Dick.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you. Very good. So I'd entertain a motion to close discussion on this item.
Make a motion, we close discussion.
I'll second.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Excuse me, he's got an appointment.
Nope, you're fine.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Very good. Next item, we have a Board of Health reappointment request from Kim. Go ahead. Oh, I thought you had it. Okay, sorry about that.
All right, we do have, our Board of Health doctor's term, ended, or ends in this month, this week. And she has agreed to do another term. So, we would request that the, Board of Supervisors consider, renewing Shannon Remington's term as the Board of Health doctor.
Very good. Discussion?
I don't have any problems with this.
All right, very good. Is there a motion?
Make motion to reappoint Shannon Remington on the health board.
Second.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs. McCombs,
Steve?
Aye.
Thanks, Kim. Next, Marion County Ordinance 2022-4. This is for the approval of the third reading and final approval. So Missy,
Yes.
little
So
background again.
We've worked over the past year, the zoning commission, representatives from the board of supervisors with Des Moines MPO to clean up some existing long-term issues within Marion County, clean up some definitions, add some definitions with zoning ordinances. They're kind of like technology. By the time you get them approved, you've already realized other things that need change because we have to change with the times. The zoning ordinances have to change with the times. One of the big things that we have done some cleanup and clarification on is foundation requirements that came to light with the birth of the pole barn, that what we had in there was not gonna work if we weren't gonna do inspections and building codes. So that's what we've done. We've worked to come up with some changes. We started this process as far as public notices back in October, went to the zoning commission. This is the third reading with you as a board of supervisors. It's been on the website since the end of September. We've had it run this kind of a simplified version of it in the paper 4 different times. We've had really very little public input. I think we've heard from at most 10 people. So yeah, I feel comfortable with, we're trying to make changes that simplify it. A lot of the definitions are simplifying for the public. You know, if we have a hard time interpreting them, then obviously
Sure.
people that don't deal with it every day have an even bigger problem dealing with it or interpreting what it says. So
Right.
we've added some minimum lot sizes where there weren't any in commercial and industrial, but
So Missy, I mean, looking at just the summary page here, where we've got the 6 items that have been updated on this ordinance, you say you've got 10 public comments.
correct.
So none of those public comments dissuade you from moving forward with this motion?
The biggest amount of public comments, which is one of the cleanups that we're doing is, and has to, is Pershing. Obviously, Pershing's been unzoned since 1976. They'll now be included in zoning. Those comments ranged in not really any concern, but there was comments of, would that help them proceed with the sewer project, which, as we all know, that was an environmental health,
Right.
action. And no, that's not gonna give them any, now that we've got several of those, most of them have been upgraded, that's not gonna have anything to do with whether or not they would get sewer. That's
Right.
kind of a done deal. The other big comment was, it's gonna raise my taxes. No, it's not. Your taxes are based on your taxation classification, not your zoning. So those were the 2 biggest comments. Everything that's currently, whether it be use or existing structure, would be grandfathered in as of the effective date of 1/1/2023. The thing that would not be grandfathered in would be nuisances that fall under the zoning ordinance. If we, again, get a complaint, those would be subject to enforcement, just like anywhere else
Right.
in the county.
Okay, very good. Board, questions or discussion?
No, I don't have any questions regarding this. Thank you, Missy, for your due diligence, putting it out there and yeah, I'm fine with this.
Steve?
No, thank you, Missy. And I know it's a confusing and ongoing process.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Very good. If there is nothing else, I would entertain a motion to approve the 3rd reading and final approval of this proposed ordinance that would amend book chapter 55 of our zoning regulations, and it would authorize official publication of these changes.
I make a motion, we approve the 3rd reading and the final approval of the proposed Marion County Ordinance 2022-4.
I'll second.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey.
Aye, very good. Thank
The
you, Missy.
ordinance and the official summary was sent to the newspaper subject to the passing today, so it will be published on Friday, so it can be effective 1/1/2023.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Missy. Thank you. Next, we have a Conservation Board reappointment. Steve, is this yours? You have the mic for Steve?
Yeah, Karen does a wonderful job, attends all the board meetings. If for some reason she's gone, she always calls in, so we do a phone conference. Very knowledgeable in conservation oriented issues, from her time when she worked for the Iowa State Extension Service. So highly recommended. I just would reiterate what Bill Boyd's letter said. She does a very good job.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Steve. Board, any questions or discussion?
I know Karen personally, and Karen is a very upstanding person. And her time and knowledge and ISU extension I can see how it'd be beneficial, so I have no problem with this.
All right, is there a motion?
Make motion to approve Karen Ackley to the Marion County Conservation Board.
Second,
McCombs,
aye.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. All right, next. That we had on last meeting. What a way to end 2022. So we decided to add this to the agenda to have a discussion. We put this on last meeting, really didn't have numbers or any data to go with it. So I thought I would throw together at least for consideration, some initial thoughts on the budget. We can open these for discussion, for contemplation, all of those things that we'll deal with coming up here in January. Probably the first thing, Lisa, if you could go ahead and put up do we have this slide? Timeline, do we have that?
It should be on
I thought it was on the packet. Well. You don't have that. All right. Well, you can't see it, but we can. In our packet, we have a budget timeline. So the first thing is, similar to what we did last year, put together a schedule. This is not certainly intended to be the final outline, but it's really based on some of the requirements that Jake has to meet in terms of publication and getting those things done.
You have I wondered if you have one. Okay.
Yeah. So as you can see, we've got January 13th department proposals are due to the auditor. So Jake, have you sent out the worksheets yet?
Worksheets went out
Okay.
after the last meeting.
And then from the week January 16th through the 20th, the auditor will enter, summarize, prepare budget proposals for the Board of Supervisors. So that's where Jake's going to get everything back from the departments and work on the books for the board. Week of January 23rd through the 27th are possible dates for budget meetings. February 13th, target date for budgets to be completed and allow time for publication and other meetings to take place in case there are amendments or changes. And then March 31st, the approved budget is due at the state of Iowa. Jake, is that still the correct date?
Yeah, they moved it back a couple years ago to the end of March instead of March 15. That was when they also put in the max levy requirement. So you have to do a public notice and a time period and say what your maximum levy is going to be. You can go below, you just can't go high. And then another publication period for the actual budget hearing. So
Right.
that's why they moved it back in March, but it also actually puts more time on you guys.
Okay, good. So the purpose is really to provide enough time for department heads to work on submissions to the auditor, give Jake enough time to get those to the board, give the board enough time to digest all that information, talk to departments, set up meeting schedules, et cetera, and then get those back to the state, giving us enough leeway to work through any changes or modifications. So that's really the first item kind of up for bids here as we talk about the budget and the timeline for the budget. So what do we have next?
Can I
Oh.
ask something for Jake just real quick?
Yeah.
I didn't know, Jake, when are the auditors coming? Is that,
So the
that
auditor-
works for you?
Auditors are the last week of, that, after that the last week of January, first part of February, that week is when we have auditors in the building.
So the date is the 23rd to the
It
27th.
doesn't have to be a dead week, but it would be appreciated from the meetings, because we've had those meetings during that time, and if you guys need to, but it's nice if we can be in the building for them when they're there that week. Right.
No,
So
perfect.
It's not as strong as a request as the election day, but we'll do whatever you need. to do.
All right.
But no, I appreciate that. I
Good.
just wanted to make sure on that date. Yep.
Good, thank you. All right, next item, I thought we would talk about some of the things that the board did last year. That's my cue to Lisa to pull up the slide. We're gonna test out our technology today. There we go. So when we think about going into this budget cycle, I thought just as a good reminder, it would be, what did the Board of Supervisors do last year at this time for our employees and over the course of the year? And the only reason I put this up here, really, it's a reminder to us as a board. It's also a reminder to all of our department heads and employees that the previous year was, it's always a challenge within government to try to fund all your projects, make sure you have a competitive health insurance program, and make sure you have competitive salaries. So as you can see, last year we added a new holiday, Martin Luther King Day. I was going to tease Lisa about this, but because she had Martin Lutheran King Jr. holiday. The COVID bonuses, 3,300 per all full-time employees. So something unique. Again, it's going to be a one-time event, but the board decided to distribute those dollars to most of our staff. Again, there was a cutoff line because of the requirements of ARPA as to who could get them, who could get those bonuses and who couldn't. So our highly compensated individuals and elected officers did not get a bonus. So this went to predominantly our rank and file workers, and we were very pleased to be able to do that for them. Health insurance renewal was projected to be at 10.42% last year, or about, as Lisa put up here, and she did just an excellent job doing this for me, 219,000, a little over that. We chipped in, the Board of Supervisors, $145,000 from a dental account that had been sitting, just accumulating money over the course of the last 10 years, and decided to try to buy that down or pay that down for our employees to roughly a 5% increase in the overall health insurance rate. We're going to talk about that again this budget cycle to see if we can do that because we are, again, as we talked to Sarah, projecting at least a 10% increase in health insurance and possibly more. And then salary increases last year. This is taking into all departments, all staff, including electeds. So we've got a 6.14% increase overall, about $600,000 in total salary increases last year. So that's what the Board of Supervisors approved or did or took action on last year, again, to really reward employees, provide competitive health insurance. Our health insurance program, which I highlight a lot, which I think we should, is highly competitive in Marion County. I think I see Tyler nodding, and anybody who knows what some of our private employers offer. It's not that they offer bad plans. It's just that we have offered a very competitive plan relative to our private sector partners. So, thank you. So we have several items in the budget. We're not going to certainly go through all of those items today, but I wanted to provide an outline. So if you could throw up that Word document on salaries. So this won't be in your packet. This is something that I asked Lisa to put together and that I would talk through. Of course, if I can see it. No, it's okay. It's okay. So I'm going to look back here because with my glasses, that's what I can see. What I'm thinking about, and again, this is open for discussion, and we'll do this during the budget process. We received recommendations from the Compensation Board as for elected official salaries, and we're very pleased with the service of our compensation board members. Before we get to that, though, no, what do we got here? Okay, there we go. Nope, that's okay. This just shows you what happened last year by fund. So when we look at the average wage increase was 6.14% for last fiscal. That's the total dollars. We pulled out the assessor because the assessor is really governed by a different committee. You get to about 582 was the salary increase on a year-over-year basis. And then here's how it is distributed through the different funds, because that's also something we have to keep in mind. It doesn't all just come out of Fund 1. It comes out of different funds. So that just gives you that perspective on last year. So let's go to this year. Or proposal for this year. I'm throwing out a new idea. It's something I've toyed with in the past. Didn't do it, but this year I thought I'm going to try it, at least throw it out as a proposal. What we've done in the past as a board is we've offered our supervisors a bucket of dollars. And we tended to say it's going to be X percent, you all get the same percentage. I'm not sure we're going to be able to do that going forward and keep salaries competitive in all of our areas. So the one area that this proposal emphasizes is our secondary roads department, where I'm suggesting that we try to keep our bucket in line with what we've done in the past, roughly 5% on the aggregate, but offer our secondary roads a little more of that bucket. So giving Tyler on his budget line a 6.5% salary increase. And then as you can see, the percentages distributed vis-a-vis the different departments. There's always a drive for fairness and those things within county government. But we know we're going to be dealing with some competitive issues as far as how do we hire and retain particular staff in particular departments. And in my opinion, our most important department is keeping our roads open. We saw that recently during the weather. And we also know that there's been some salary compression and salary issues that Tyler's had to deal with in terms of retaining staff. So this puts a little bit more of the bucket towards secondary roads in order to get some of those line salaries up and allow Tyler some more flexibility. That's the proposal anyway. And then we go down by different departments. So it is not a equal split of the overall salary bucket. What it does is the approach saves about $80,000 over last year in terms of total salary. So we keep it at about a $502,000 salary increase. Takes the comp board recommendations you can see on that line, and I've cut it by half. So whatever the comp board recommended, I've just reduced that by 50%. And again, we'll talk about comp board and all those things. But that's a good starting point for me anyway, personally. I thought I should get my views out there and let people comment or discuss those as we go through the budget process. I think those are all still good raises for elected officials. I appreciate people thinking supervisors should get 11%. I really do. But taking that down by half, I think is reasonable. For the sheriff, that would take an 18 down to a 9, and then you can see the math on the rest. Do I have anything else? Okay. So those are the major things I wanted to get on the table now. I know people are thinking about this when they do their budgets. What is kind of the general sense and flavor of the board? Again, no decisions on it, but I wanted to get my ideas out there so that you could at least see what I'm thinking about. There you go, board.
I have to maybe explain it to me a little bit. So like the sheriff, when you say 5% increase, is that still, is that his whole department?
No, it's just what I'm going back to, Keisha, is on the salary line. giving Jason a 5% increase on his salary line. He decides how he wants to distribute that. If he wants to give somebody an 8, somebody a 2, however he wants to do that, that's his call. Same
Okay.
with Chris, same with Kim, same with anybody else.
We're giving the department heads a little more control.
Yep.
So you're not dealing with
Last year.
compensation board recommendations. They're not in there.
But actually, comp board is in the other column. That's why it says comp board. So we're taking anybody tied to the comp board
So,
is in
okay,
a
I
different
see where you
bucket.
got the 60. Okay, yep.
That's a different bucket because deputies, this is something we have to explain every year. So that's a good comment. The comp board recommendations flow from the elected officials to statutorily designated deputies.
Right.
Some of those deputies are at 80%, some are at 85. I think the statute allows them to go up to 85. Is that?
Yeah, lieutenants and the sergeants.
So whoever fits into
Chief
that,
deputies, 85.
whoever fits into that bucket of deputies. I don't want to get technical right now.
And not,
Yeah.
not necessarily law enforcement deputies either, other department.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So that bucket that's the comp board bucket. That's going to be different than our non-comp board affected jobs. All right, so we've got to kind of balance those two buckets, right? I'm saying I'm taking the comp board recommendations down by half. Do we have that chart, Lisa, that we worked on? Yeah, we might as well throw that up there. Since that's part of the math that
I
went into this.
I think the bottom line is what we're gonna wind up really looking at too is whatever we finally decide on is gonna be what we're comfortable with in the fund balance.
No, and you're absolutely right. As it ties into what Jake is, the final numbers we get on assessed values. Jake, I think we're down about 55 million in valuation. Is that what you're thinking about?
We haven't hit the button yet. It'll hit the button this week, but the taxable valuations that's accessible to the board is up 55 million.
So that's going to
Which
work
is
out just
just,
shy of 200,000.
And when we say that, that's what, like we sent earlier and talked earlier, it's right in line with that. That's the growth of the taxable on top of what you had last year times $3.50.
Right.
Right, so it's right in line with, it just when the work the taxable utilities and the TIF increment areas.
Right.
The increase ended up at 55 million,
Right.
which is still.
So just so you all, whoop,
It's a little touchy, sorry.
that's a tad touch. All right. So just so you know, the math that I used, I took whatever the comp board recommended and I just did an option 1. We just took it down by half for that. And that's the math that flows through to the deputies attributable to comp board. Okay. And that's my starting point on comp board. You may have a different starting point, but that's where I'm at. And I think what that does is, remember, we wrestled last year with if we take it down too low, the other electeds really get nothing,
Penalized.
right? But as you can see in the percentages, these are still pretty good percentage increases. Okay. And so I think that was a reasonable starting point for me. And it takes a $66,000 allocation down to 33. So again, the issue for me right now is twofold. When people work at Marion County and we've got great employees, it's how do we balance salary and having a competitive salary with a competitive benefit program? So if we look across the board, at least at what I'm thinking about here, and you save roughly $80,000, that doesn't mean we're going to keep that money. That money is going to be used to buy down your health insurance. And try to get that down. Because somewhere, somehow, if a goal of ours is to try to get that 10% down to 5 or some lesser percentage, it's trying to have a total package of benefits that are affordable and keep us within a budget that we can sustain. Last year, just salary alone, we were up almost $600,000 on our salary line. So we've got to put some restrictions there. Now, there's another piece to this that I haven't said that I'll just throw out. And that is, I think I'm leaning really heavily toward an allocation resolution, or at least discussing an allocation resolution, Jake, where we may budget 100%, but we may dial that down in terms of our allocation.
So appropriations. when we do the
Appropriation,
Annual
sorry. Yeah.
appropriation budget for
Yes.
that resolution.
Correct. Right now, we use about 96% of what we budget. If we just look across all departments. So if we can dial that back, and if people aren't spending it, well, that reserves more cash into the general fund. Again, it allows us some flexibility on health insurance to try to not have that be a 10% hit if that's the desire of the board. So I'm going after similar goals to what we did last year. And that may not be what we discussed or agreed to, but you know that net salary and health insurance for our employees are a big deal. But those two are massive dials for everybody. So how do we try to balance those, keeping a lid on our overall costs? And I think this, at least on the salary and comp side, gets us started in that discussion.
I think, you know, if you lower the insurance costs, you have to factor that in as part of a salary increase.
Yeah.
To some extent.
To some level, Steve, yeah. Again, it's try to use those dollars appropriately on both of those lines. Now, again, with health insurance, and these are discussion points we will have. We know that based on what Sarah has told us, we're going to get an increase. Last year, our more expensive program is our PPO program. We may widen that gap even more to require employees to pay more of that program. We have 26 employees right now on our HSA program. So we've had tremendous utilization of that program, and I would love to see that program continue to move forward with the same allocations we currently have. Because I think it's an excellent program for our employees. And as we showed in the health insurance meeting, it's actually reducing our cost. So we're having some cost savings to the county and to the employee on health insurance by leveraging those plans and by moving people to the HMO versus the PPO plan. So anyway, those are other little dials that can be turned by staff to help reduce costs and provide, I think, a tremendous benefit to our employees.
I have a question for
Yeah.
Jake. So Jake, health insurance comes out of Fund 2, correct? And that's a separate levy?
Mhm.
Okay. So yeah, and that's the levy that we took down 20 cents last year. And the fund balance is yeah, it's doing pretty well.
Yep.
So yeah.
We talked about the possibility of doing it again.
Yep, another question for Tyler. Tyler, when you look at your budget, do you have the room to be able to do that for wage increases, or were you allocating some of those funds for something else? Because yours comes out of, what is that fund?
Variety of funds.
Yeah,
Yeah, our wages are
20.
all out of Fund 20.
yes.
So I don't know if your spreadsheet was tallying that difference, Mark, but we had 5% last year, so the difference in the 1.5% might be some additional savings in that.
Yes.
Since ours is out of Fund 12, there might be a little more savings there that could, instead of that 80 actually.
Yeah,
but
and I don't think we factored that in, Tyler. I just went.
It'd be
I just-
minimal.
I-
but-
It'd be minimal,
Yeah.
but I just went off gross dollars.
So I haven't locked a number in yet, but there's room there, definitely not the room that we used to have. If that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I
because
just
of
didn't
our-
know if you had those dollars allocated to something else within your department.
No. I was somewhere in that range anyway, in that 6 to 7% range.
Yeah.
Because last couple of years, I've kind of done my own wage audit, total compensation audit, not just your hourly rate. And we're behind in various positions and we haven't been able to get our employees where they need to be in those various positions. And so we've been looking to do that. And in order to do that, I need some flexibility in my budget line, my wage line item.
And then a couple other things. I think long-term sustaining, being able to sustain. And, you know, as we grow in our salary line, you know, if you have new growth, you know, and you're taking at least, you know, all of that plus some, and we did this, you know, if we went with this plan, we possibly were doing it this year. But then I toil with the same thing you guys do. How do you sustain these workers? How do you keep them? You know, we have to be able to pay a good wage. And so I struggle with that because at the end of the day, we only have so much of a pot of money. And looking forward, being able to sustain it. So, I mean, I want to express what goes through my head. And that's how I, you know, logically thinking of it. I knew last year we spent over that amount that the new growth. And this year, you know, we very well could be too. And when you have a budget between anywhere of a 5 to 6 million budget, generally what we have for reserves, and expenses continue to go up, definitely something that it's a difficult challenge. This is because I want you to know how, you know, I value the staff and what you have and being able to retain them. On a different note, the COVID bonus, you know, I look at what everybody did during COVID, and to me, you know, happy that Mark brought it up, but at the same point, that was because of all the work they did in the past. So I guess I didn't necessarily think of that for this, you know, overall when we look at what we did this past year. I felt like everybody, all the workers had put in those extra hours. So.
That's a good point, except we didn't have to do that.
No, we
We
didn't
could
have to
use
do
that
it.
money for other purposes. So that was a board action related to those dollars.
To your
And-
point, Keisha, I think, you know, county employees as a whole are providing a public service. You know, some of our employees here are supporting the other departments that provide the public service. And, you know, we, as department heads, you know, I'm sure Jason has the same struggle I do in our budget with, you have to have employees to provide the service, but you have to have the money to do the other things at the same time. So we're always juggling that. And you know, last year in my budget presentation, you saw where we could make cuts, and, you know, initially it's cuts in the level of service while still being able to provide the essential services. And then if things get really bad, then we start you know, essential services start to decline in their level of service because we can't do some of the other things. But because we don't have any more room left in our budget, we have to start cutting personnel. So we struggle with that all the time. You know, are there ways that we can change our operations to be more efficient and potentially reduce staff and save money? Sure. But I'm just kind of helping you prove your point, I guess, but you know, I think our department heads were constantly doing that,
And I appreciate that.
trying to balance the service we provide with keeping wages competitive, and knowing that we have to have people to do what we do. But yet there's still a limited amount of funds. So, you know, do you do a project, or do you have a quick response time in emergency situations, flooding, snow removal, that sort of thing?
Right.
It's a challenge, and I'm sure Jason and Steve and all the departments struggle with that.
Everybody in Marion County government struggles with the idea of keeping wages competitive and keeping us within budget. Because all of our department managers have done a good job doing that. Steve wrestles with it, I wrestle with it, everybody wrestles with it. But you just hit on the key point, Tyler. Unless you've got graders that can be remotely run, it takes people to do this stuff. Efficiencies can be gained, and we've gained a lot of efficiencies over the years. I think we'll get to that point when we talk the budget, where we show how much we've saved over 10 years, just in terms of making county government more efficient, spending less on certain, I mean, I can go through half the stuff that I've done with Kim over the years and talk about the hundreds of thousands of dollars that have been cut out of the budget. But there's a point at which efficiency actually goes to your detriment, right? You can only get so efficient. And I don't know, what I don't want to get caught up in is that discussion. Because everybody here is going to have a different view of it. So unless somebody can prove to me conclusively on what that efficiency load is, we're a people group. We're people serving people and providing those services. One of the things I've done in this proposal is basically suggest that certain departments, we have to start weighting the dollars we attribute to salary. The amount of those increases is always open for discussion. All right, the national average right now, according to ADP, they're a large paycheck processor for private sector workers, is 7.7%, 7.5 to 7.7. That's the average increase across the nation. Okay, for private sector workers. So knowing something about that area, I kind of get a feel for what we need to do here in Marion County, not based on other public sector workers, but private sector. Second piece is this. We operate on a lag. So all the assessments and the new revenue that Jake is talking about, which you look in totality, you don't ever just look at your new money, you look at the total revenue you have. That's based on an assessment that's already been done in the past. What are those next assessments going to look like? When we know that on the coasts, house values are coming down. And Iowa is always on a lag to that. So what happens if we see assessments or house sales starting to decline in value? And what does that do to our revenue looking forward, not just looking back? Those are the things that we've got to keep in mind, because that's what drives the revenue collection to perform the functions that we do. But yet, at the same time, you got to cover some of those costs. People don't do this for free. And so what is that reasonable amount of compensation to reward folks for the work that they do? So those are my ideas, my thoughts on budget.
I would like to also reiterate that number one legislative issue at the Capitol is property tax reform. So we could be looking at it in other ways too. So we don't have any idea what the House or Senate is looking at. I just know that I have been told by legislation that it is their number one priority.
Steve, any thoughts? And you don't have to, I mean, this is purely for digestion and ideas. We didn't
And you
have,
say that the nationwide increase in the private sector was 7.
according to ADP. Now, that's not the totality of private sector, but they process a lot of paychecks for folks. And they put out, it's in that 7 to 8% range.
Well, I'd say that's a good starting point for discussion.
Yeah. So I guess what I would say is take this, the information that we put together, that Lisa's put together, we'll do more work and more homework. We'll do, we'll do that. And then that'll be part of our discussion as we move forward into the next budget cycle. So I didn't put this out here for debate or anything like that. That's not what this is for, because we're not ready as a board to debate it until we get to the budget process. But it's to give you guys some feel about where I'm at, and to maybe guide what you're thinking about and how we approach the budget process as we go forward. Okay?
Quick question. So just on clarification, what you're kind of looking at for this year, for us as electeds, is the pot money aspect of it. So not so much individual aspect of it. You're looking at whatever percent, if it was 5%, a 6%, a 7%, whatever that was, in that general increase. And then we as electeds then kind of decide on if that's personnel, if that's equipment, if that's et cetera. I mean, I guess I'm looking for clarification.
So all I'm talking about here is salary, Jason.
Okay, salary only.
So I'm talking about salary here. I'm glad you brought this up, because this is something I want to reiterate when I talk about putting an appropriations idea out there as well. And again, this is my thoughts. As we get into this discussion, who knows how it will change. But one of the things I'm going to key on this year, because we do have to be mindful of where we're headed in terms of our overall expense load, is both an appropriations amount that I think we need to get to based on utilization of our dollars. And also, since the board's authority is to establish your budgets, I think I'm going to be more particular this year about taking dollars out of one bucket and putting it into another. In other words, if you guys have an equipment, I'll just pick on an equipment budget. And you say, well, I'm going to use my equipment budget. I've got some extra there. I'm going to bring it over to the salary line because I need to juice my salaries a little bit. And that may be an appropriate thing to do. But I think I'm going to want those to come back here for discussion. And the reason is this: when we establish the budget, we're establishing all those lines within the budget. We may not go through each line item with everybody, but our expectation is that if you put $100,000 for equipment, you're going to use $100,000 for equipment, not 40,000 for 60,000 for equipment and then shift 40,000 for salaries. So I think I'm going to want more interaction on that.
The problem with that, though, is those of us that have not increased those equipment lines over the last 4 or 5,
Mhm.
6 years, if we haven't increased those and we have tried to supplement budgets with that, we haven't had that increase.
Correct.
So you have to take into consideration, had we asked for a 4% increase in equipment or a gas or whatever it is, our budgets would be higher. So just keep that in mind, that how we balance that over those years of trying to do that with those salaries,
And
I mean, comes
Jay-
into play.
yeah, Jason, I get that.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we
I'm
we
just
don't
putting
lose
mo-
the discussion. of it.
No, I'm just putting more of a fine tuning from my perspective. I'm going to I want more interaction on those issues. And maybe we get it all settled during the budget process and we don't have to come back and revisit it. Or maybe we say, hey, that's a point that we've got to come back over the course of the year and have that discussion. Either way is fine. But
And-
as you work on your budgets, think about those things.
And I also just want you to take into consideration too, that we have asked staff, whether it been back in COVID or different things. I can just use my office for an example. We have increased the workloads on those jailers, for an example,
Mhm.
by housing inmates from a lot of other counties.
Right.
That has been a significant revenue source for this county,
Yep.
but it's at the burden in the backs of those jailers. I mean, so
Yep.
that's above and beyond what they're asked to do in the performance. So just, I want you to take that into consideration,
And,
that as employees, I mean.
and here's, and again, another good point. I'm going to dovetail off that a little bit. And this is a challenge for us. It is incumbent upon this board that when we're having our individual meetings to make sure to ask all the questions that need to be asked during those meetings.
Thank you.
Because I think we have to do our job. You're right. You're absolutely right, Jason. I agree. Good points. Anything else for us? Because if not, I'll entertain a motion to close discussion.
Make a motion, we close the discussion.
A second.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
Very good. Any updates? Steve?
No.
All right. Well, you heard all mine. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make motion, we adjourn.
Second.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
Very good. We are adjourned. Thank you.